Hello, I'm BMillzebub, and welcome to a new episode of Criticisms of the Catholic Church, the show where I go through the Catechism, find a piece of Catholic doctrine, and break down why it's bullshit. And today, we're going to talk about drugs. So let's start with Catechism 2290, which says, "The virtue of temperance disposes us to avoid every kind of excess, the abuse of food, alcohol, tobacco, or medicine. Those incur grave guilt who, by drunkenness or a love of speed, endanger their own and others' safety on the road, at sea, or in the air." I actually don't have too much of a problem here, because too much of a good thing can turn into a bad thing. I wouldn't say that the behaviors incur grave guilt. Maybe a reaction, something like, "Oh, fuck, I'm dumb. Why did I drink so much last night?" But not grave guilt. I try to not do things in excess for exactly that reason. Too much alcohol or caffeine can lead to a pretty painful next morning. Driving too fast can cause you to lose control of your car, resulting in the injury or death of another person or people, yourself, or all of the above. Doing things in moderation is fine, and if you were to only go off of Catechism 2290, you'd think I have nothing to criticize. Oh, but I do. I do have something to criticize. And my criticism starts with Catechism 2291, which says the use of drugs inflicts very grave damage on human health and life. Their use, except on strictly therapeutic grounds, is a grave offense. Clandestine production of and trafficking in drugs are scandalous practices. They constitute direct cooperation in evil, since they encourage people to practices gravely contrary to the moral law. So let me start off by saying that I'm not a healthcare expert, nor do I support breaking the law or doing something harmful to yourself. If you live somewhere that something you do or would like to do is illegal, and that thing you want to do isn't actually harmful, I might suggest abstaining from that thing and actively fighting to make it legal. I'm mostly talking about something like cannabis here. So let's break down Catechism 2291 with the first sentence. The use of drugs inflicts very grave damage on human health and life. I mean, are you really sure of that? Cannabis is, practically speaking, impossible to die from, and in fact can help with a number of ailments. I myself plan on smoking weed to deal with back pain, as well as a bit of recreation on the side, because why the hell not? And let's talk about alcohol, because whether the church realizes this or not, alcohol is a drug, and a mind-altering one at that. I mention this because the sacramental wine must contain alcohol, and this statement, considering alcohol as a drug, contradicts Catechism 2290. Catechism 2290 talks about doing things in moderation, including alcohol, which I'll remind you is a mind-altering drug, while the first sentence of Catechism 2291 makes an admonition against any and all consumption of drugs, except on therapeutic grounds. So let's talk about those therapeutic grounds. The next sentence of Catechism 2291 states, their use except on strictly therapeutic grounds is a grave offense. This is the part of this particular catechism I take as blaming the victim. Many of those victims are opioid addicts. And this information comes from the National Institute of Health, which I'll put on screen now. Roughly 21 to 29% of patients prescribed opioids for chronic pain misuse them. Between 8 and 12% develop an opioid use disorder. An estimated 4 to 6% who misuse prescription opioids transition to heroin. About 80% of people who use heroin first misused prescription opioids. Opioid overdoses increased 30% from July 2016 through September 2017 in 52 areas in 45 states. The Midwestern region saw opioid overdoses increase 70% from July 2016 through September 2017. Opioid overdoses in large cities increase by 54% in 16 states. I can't think of a single addict who ever asked to be an addict or wanted to be an addict. Some people think addiction is a choice, and they're just plain wrong. This is why I consider this portion of Catechism 2291 to be victim blaming. The Catholic Church in this instance is completely removing the duty of care medical practitioners have to protect their patients, as well as removing the duty of care from legislators who make better alternatives for pain management illegal to use, and placing the whole of the blame on people who didn't want to become addicted to an opioid in the first place. There are many other reasons for someone to become addicted to drugs, but there's simply not enough time to go into all of the nuance in this video. And to all of you suffering from addiction for these other causes, just know that I sympathize with you and will not stand for the Catholic Church turning you from a victim to a villain. Also, if any of my viewers do struggle with addiction, my friend Unholy Mole has a channel where he talks about addiction and recovery. You can find the link in the description below. The next sentence reads, clandestine production of and trafficking in drugs are scandalous practices. I honestly agree with this, mostly because I believe consuming a product that has no regulation to protect the safety of the consumer is dangerous. Almost definitely not at all for the same reasons as the Church, as my arrival at this conclusion comes from the perspective of protecting people, where the Catholic Church comes from the position of because God said so. And let's solidify why I think the Catholic Church uses the because God says so line of thought as to why recreational drug use or abuse is wrong by reading the final sentence of Catechism 2291. They constitute direct cooperation in evil, since they encourage people to practices gravely contrary to the moral law. Gravely contrary to the moral law. Or put another way, because God said so. But that'll do it for this Criticisms of the Catholic Church. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to click the like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and click the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. If you feel so inclined to help me out, consider giving to my Patreon, where I have monthly patron-only live streams and hangouts, or consider getting me something from my Amazon wishlist. Every little bit helps, and every little bit is greatly appreciated. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, linked below, to keep up with all my comings and goings, and join my Discord for a chance to talk to yours truly. Take it easy, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one.